Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
Hey guys, every Wednesday, I'm going to be hosting a live online event sharing my biggest lessons in an action-packed presentation designed to help you go from where you are now to where you want to be. I'm helping men break through their biggest limiting beliefs to create the life they want. Plus, after the presentation, I'm going to do an open Q&A where I answer all of your questions. To register for my next event, go to kfmlive.com. Again, that's kfmlive.com. Register now before the event fills up. Hope to see you there. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Phillip Adcock, leading commercial psychologist and author of the new book, Master Your Brain, Training Your Mind for Success in Life. Phillip, happy to have you here on the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
All right, and Phillip, I was just sharing with you that we start off every show with a favorite success quote or a saying that the guest has lived by. So share with us what you got and what that means to you.
Okay, I think there's one saying that sums up so much about what's between our ears, and that is, if the brain was so simple that we could understand it, we'd be so simple that we couldn't. And that's attributed to a Lyle Watson.
And what does that mean, if you could break that down for us?
Of course I will. It means that even now we know so little about the brain. Even the top psychologists at Harvard, Yale, know so little about it. It is such a wonderful supercomputer. We just can't even fathom what it can do for us. And in my opinion, what we've been doing in the last 100 years, probably no more, is just scratching the surface of what it can do. And we just started to find out that the way we thought it worked and the way we thought it could help us is probably totally wrong.
And so is your book here, Master Your Brain, Training Your Mind for Success in Life? And I could see here you got a lot of different things you're talking about: emotions, relationships, memory, fears, personality, communication, language, success. It is your take on your study and your research of how we can use our brain to have more success in our lives.
Absolutely. I've been a disciple of the self-help genre for many years, 30 or 40 years. And I've read lots of books like many other people. And as part of my professional life, I get to study behavior and psychology for a living. And I started to look into this way back 25 years ago, probably seriously, and realized that some of the stuff in the books is good, some of it not so good. And when you look at the science behind it, in my opinion, the solutions jump out a lot more easily. They're actually easier to attain than some of the well-trodden mantras that are out there.
So are you talking about the law of attraction? What is your take on that? Yeah.
Law of attraction, again, I have no axe to grind with any of these people that write this stuff, but when you add the science to it, you get a whole new take. So, for example, when we come to attraction, as silly as it sounds, women smell more attractive on certain parts of the menstrual cycle. I don't know who knows that, who doesn't. So if women understand when they smell their best, they know when not to put quite so much Chanel No. 5 on. If men know when women smell the best and they can sort of act on it, it just makes the whole thing more naturally flowing and easy to cope with.
Yeah. Okay. And coming into your book here, what really led you to write this book? I mean, writing a book it's a lot of work. I mean, you're putting all of your best work and research into this comprehensive format here in the form of a book. You know, what led you to write this whole project?
This is going to be a strange story, but it's the truth. So we'll just say it.
I like the truth.
That's always the best ones. Yeah. Many, many years ago, I'm probably going back at the beginning of my career in retail. I'm probably going back 35 years, 30 years. I happened to be doing some work in the UK and staying in a hotel. And I thought, I'm going to go out and see a show tonight. And a year before that, incidentally, my auntie had bought me one of these get whatever you want, whenever you want books, which I'd read and sort of just parked. I'd forgotten about it. I went to see this show and I thought, I'm going to go and see a hypnotist in a UK town called Blackpool, which is a seaside town, very famous for the working classes. And I sat there with this 500 other people watching this hypnotist show. And just before the half show interval, the guy said, here's something we can all do as an audience. I'm going to do an exercise now. And he did this exercise where he told us all that we put our hands in the air and our fingers were stuck together. But about half of the audience, me included, said, yep, my fingers are stuck together. And I'm a grown adult male, sober, hadn't had a drink. I just said, yep, I'm stuck. So we all had to go on the stage and have our fingers released. And when he did this, the women went back to their seats and the men fell in a heap in some sort of trance, me included. And from that moment on, I thought, there's something in this brain. I have got to learn more about this. This is one heck of a tool I've got between my ears. So that started me on the journey. I started reading and reading and reading and reading.
And you said you're a commercial psychologist. You said you were in retail, so you were doing psychology for consumers, like helping what makes someone purchase.
Yes. So yes, but I don't necessarily. I haven't always done that for consumers. So I have had my training. I started with in-store displays. I think they call it POP in the States, and I came across if I could understand what made the customers, the shoppers, tick, I could make my displays sell more stuff. Simple as that.
Right.
So I started applying psychology to in-store display. And although I say so myself, with a great deal of success. In one of the early experiments, we created a new carpet display. This is very boring, I know. But over a measured 6-week period, it increased sales by 350% against the other displays in the store. So I thought, well, this is good. And then the big companies started to come to me and say, can you tell us how to do this? And so I have spent the last 30 years, 20 years, my own company, helping big retailers and brands meet customer needs and frankly sell more stuff.
Yeah. Oh, so basically when I come home from the store and I have a lot of things I don't need, it's because of your work.
Sorry. You can have that one.
Okay. And so I understand. So this is your study of the brain. You're understanding how you can do things and that'll get someone to take an action. How does this lead into training your mind for success in life?
Okay. Once you understand, for example, that if I put some emotional pictures in a store above the shelving in what we call peripheral vision, and I realize it has an impact on the shopper's behavior because it changes their emotional state, and I make them feel guilty, so they buy more treats for their pets. I think, okay, that's good. So then you take that into the personal sphere and you say, okay, I'm one of these people who's reading the self-help books and I want to make change in my life. I'm going to stick a picture of something motivational on my desk and work towards it, as so many people do. Then you think, well, hang on, it's the peripheral vision that has the emotional impact on what we do. So putting the picture on the desk of something you want to achieve is great, but what's actually impacting your brain is what's around the edge of what you can see when sat at your desk. So in my world, the picture's not enough. You've got to set the whole scene. You've got to have stuff on the walls in the corner of your vision, that you've got to have the right sort of seat. You've got to have the right sort of desk. You have to convince your brain that it's real, whether it is or not.
So I know some people are very serious about their workspace. Like they want to have a really good environment, everything clean. They'll spend extra money on the chair. They'll buy the expensive pen, have a really a new computer, and all of that is what you're saying creates an environment that is conducive for being more productive.
Yeah,
to specific people.
Yeah, it's not necessarily too specific people. It's more that if you've got, our brains are very similar, believe it or not. And so because my brain is still thinking fight, flight, and find a mate, that's how it's been wired, same as yours, same as all the people listening to this, right. Then the same tools work. What our brains are actually on the lookout for is those three things. Is this thing going to eat me? Am I going to eat it? Or can I procreate with it? That's the way the brain does it. It's as simple as that. So if you start setting up the 21st century around those parameters, you say, actually, some of the stuff I'm doing is a waste of money, and there's some real easy, quick wins here.
Yeah.
Are you still there?
Yeah. I'm here. I was letting that soak in. I thought that was quite funny. Is it going to kill me? Am I going to kill it? Or am I going to screw it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to swear, but we always refer to it as the 3 Fs. Okay. Fight, flight, and find a mate. But you can
That's a good transition there. And that's okay. So now that you're understanding this, what really influences our senses?
Okay. The first and biggest thing to think about are human emotions. Human emotions have been around since we crawled out of the swamp. That's because they are the 3F drivers. And up until about 150 years ago, they weren't really taught because nobody knew what they were. They were too deep down in our subconscious. And the cognitive psychologists decided it was much easier to talk about Freudian sort of stuff and leave this funny emotion stuff somewhere else. We're now finding out that it is emotion that makes the decisions for us. So if I can get your brain, be it in a store or in a personal life, emotionally on side, then it's very hard for your modern brain, your prefrontal cortex, to actually say, no, I don't want to do that. Most of the time, unless it's very antisocial, the emotional brain has sway. It's how credit cards exist.
Yeah. Okay. And continue down this path. Is like I feel like we're just tipping the iceberg of how our emotions play a role in our everyday actions. And then I want to go into how can we use our emotions to actually be more successful in our lives and take action and overcome fear.
Okay, so carrying on with emotions, there are a number of primary emotions: happiness, fear, sadness, disgust, contempt, anger, and some say surprise. Within that, there's a lot of other emotions, about 140 specific emotions such as pride, guilt, things like that. And these are what, as we go through life, our emotions are mapping the next 20 seconds for us. That's the way I like to say it. So you're going through life, you're driving down the freeway, you're in a store, you're walking down the street, whatever. Your nervous system, sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste, are receiving input. And the first processing center it goes through is emotional. And so this literally sets your mood and your feeling for what's coming next. Constantly priming us. Now, priming is a psychological tool that's extremely powerful. In the retail world, we've used priming just by putting a color in the entrance of a store. We've increased sales of confectionery by 29%. That's priming. Yet we're priming ourselves all the time with emotion. So, if you're walking on a soft carpet, you won't notice that probably, but emotionally you're in a different space than if you're walking on a concrete floor, because that's the touch is doing something. If you mentioned a pen earlier, if you pick up a heavy pen and read somebody's document and make points on it, you'll think it's a more important document than if you mark the same document with a Bic, to use the trade name. All this stuff's happening all the time. The smells we receive are taking us back to childhood. Same with music. If you can hear us. I'm sure you know this. You can hear a song that you haven't heard for 20, 30 years, and you know where you heard it, you know who you were with, what you had for lunch, so much about that event. That's all because it emotionally wired into your brain. If it wasn't emotional, you'd have forgotten it in 18 seconds. That's the way it goes.
Yeah. Okay. This is interesting stuff, just like that buyers. Because I used to work at a retail store, so I understand all the signage. We should change all the signs. A major retailer here in the United States. And I noticed too that where the clothes were in this particular store, it was carpet. It turned from tile into carpet. And maybe that had something to do with feeling like it's more comfortable in that area. Maybe you spend more time there.
You physically walk slower. That's what happens. So if they have their 50,000 square feet of space, you want people in there for a long time till they spend some money. And so you don't want them running through the place. And if you are to turn that round, sorry to hog the retail space here, if you have got some loss-leading product that you've been advertising that you don't actually want people to buy, you want to put that on a concrete floor so they rush past it and see something with more margin. It's all the world is having an influence on our senses all the time. And once we realize that and start not just take control, just to recognize that we're being influenced, it's so easy to make that influence more positive.
Yeah, let's go in that direction now. So how can we use this, understanding this part of us that's hardwired into us, to create a mindset of success and eliminate our fears and help us take more action? There's so much to talk about here.
There is, and I don't know if I can do it all in one go, but we'll start with chunks, and then you bring me back on track, and we'll have another chunk. So let's start with the senses. We'll start with sight. So much of what influences us is visual. I think it's more than half the brain is dedicated to visual in normal-minded people, to vision. So as I mentioned earlier, it's not just that thing that you focus on in the middle of the picture in front of you. it's everything that's going on around you. Most of the stuff happening that your eyes communicate to your brain filters and ignores. It can't cope with the amount of information it gets. But it still does filter it. So all the things that you look at if you are trying, I won't use money because that's a bad example. If you want a new car, it's not just the keyring of the car that does it. It's everything about that car. It's how other people's faces will look when they see you in that car. And you have to sort of surround yourself with the visual perception so you don't fool your brain. It's just your brain thinks it doesn't know real from made up. So, this is how I'm going to feel. Let's go after that. Then if we move on to sounds, there's so much you can do with sounds. Let's stick with the cars. They spend a lot of money making the door clunk sound a certain way so you think it's good quality. That's the sound. The music in your life, if you hear music, it changes your mood. So depending on what you're about to do, be it a job interview, ask somebody out, go and buy a car, the music you play sets your brain in this state you want to get it in. And so you don't use one sense or the other, you use them all. The seat you sit on, if it's hard, you'll feel different and act different to if it's soft. If it's high, you'll be more confident than if it's low. I'm sure you know lots of these.
And this is all unconscious. Like, we're not actively thinking about this stuff.
This is happening instinctually all the time, and we cannot stop our brains filtering sensory input. It's happening all the time.
Okay. So how can we use this to overcome fear? We know we need to do something, but we're scared to do it. We're scared of that failure. We're scared of that rejection. How can we use these to overcome that?
Okay, just a step back, if I may, just from that very briefly.
Sure.
Because having this emotional supercomputer controlling our lives is great, but we've also got this petulant teenager of a neocortex in our heads trying to make sense of it all and be modern. It can't cope, but it does stop us doing some very antisocial things. And the trick to overcoming fear is to use the two together. So the fear often stems from something quite irrational at the base of it. We think we're frightened of something. Take asking somebody out on a date.
Right.
That's very fearful. And that is because of fear of rejection, all the other stuff. Now, the feeling is subconsciously driven. It's this fear of rejection, fear of failure, lots of other things. It's all emotional, all those things we've been talking about. But it's been driven by this petulant teenager that at the front, the rational prefrontal cortex thinking, if I don't ask, I can't be let down, so it's best not to ask. It comes up with excuses to not do stuff.
Right.
That's our brain always looks for the easiest answer.
It does.
It's lazy.
Yeah. It's lazy. Yeah.
It's very lazy. So when it comes to fear of something, I call it the why game. I don't know if it's a scientific tool or not, but it works for me and works for people I know and works for people I've worked with. So if you're frightened to do something, ask yourself why, but do not take the first answer. Say, why is that the case? And then, why is that the case again? And get down till you get to there's nowhere else to go. And that more often is the real reason. And it could be something so small that you think, why am I frightened of that? For goodness sake. And
let's try that. What would be, you ask me why about something.
Okay. So what are you frightened of? There, sorry to put you on the spot.
Let's see. Let's just do the girl one. We could do that.
Okay.
The attractive girl.
Yeah, let's put it into a bit of a scenario.
I think everyone can relate with it. That's why.
Yeah, you're in a bar one night. You sat there and you see this pretty girl, and let's make it interesting. You're with a couple of pals.
All right.
There she is, and so you're thinking, shall I go over and ask her or not? So now you've got the butterflies in the stomach, you've got the nerves, the adrenaline's going a bit, the heart's beating, all those emotional things that our body does automatically. But you're frightened. You're fearful of asking her because of the doubt or the chance she may say no.
Right, rejection,
okay?
Yeah.
Right. So why are you frightened of rejection?
I don't want to get hurt.
How are you going to get hurt?
She'll publicly embarrass me.
What's embarrassed? In what? Why is she going to embarrass you?
Because if I get rejected in front of a group of people, that's embarrassing.
Why is it embarrassing? What is it about being rejected that embarrasses you?
It'll make me feel like I'm less of a man.
Because you asked a girl that your mates didn't ask.
Right.
So you were more of a man because you asked her.
Right.
Go to it.
All right, I'm going right now. All right, I'm going to put down this mic. I'm going to go find a girl. I'm going to go talk to her right now.
And all I did there, and that was not a good example because I was making it up on the spot.
Right.
What you're doing is, good. I don't want to use these psychological phrases that get hijacked like reframing. I'm just saying you've got two brains between your ears. the emotional one that makes you feel all these feelings that really drive you in the heartbeats and the sweaty palms. And this other petulant teenager says, don't look a mug in front of your mates. And, the net of the little one involving itself is you've got no chance of pulling that girl because you won't ask her.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And is that you're calling it the teenage boy inside of us?
Petulant teenager. Yes, that's what I call it.
Is he always there?
Yes. Yes. Except when, not so much when we're asleep, but he's always there. And, what the way to get the most powerful effects in the brain are to leave him sulking in the corner and not poke him with a stick. So if you just do something that's emotionally right, you just think, I feel good. I'm going to go and do that. I'm going to go and get a bar of chocolates, get a bar of candy, and I'm just going to eat that and enjoy it. I don't care. I'm going to just have some fun. And he doesn't bother, then it's great. You feel great. Nothing happens. It's only he says, hang on, we're on a diet. I thought we're supposed to save 40 calories today. Oh, go away, mate. Leave me alone. And recognizing he's there, suddenly you think, so many of the things I am frightened of, frustrated by, impressed by, happy with, sad by, you think it's just this teenager causing trouble because he's trying to keep up with a much, much better brain that's running my life.
Yeah. Yeah. The teenage brain controlling your life with wanting to be lazy, wanting to do what's easy.
Yeah.
He's the king of procrastination.
Yeah. He's just the king of shortcuts, the king of avoiding any sense of emotion, any fear. There's lots of statistics. This wonderful neocortex, the modern brain, as some people call it, is it can only process around 7 bits of information at any one time, whereas the subconscious can process way, way more than that. But it's the bit of the brain that makes us different from animals. And the one thing I'll say about the prefrontal cortex is it is the difference between us and animals, but there's some research out now that says the only thing it does is, whereas all animals do stupid things, only humans are able to make up an excuse why they just did it. And that's the prefrontal cortex doing its bit.
What would be an example of that?
So take somebody playing a game of golf, and you stood there, you're about to play a shot, and you have this, as you did with the chatting up the girl, this fear of the shot. So you tense up. So your prefrontal cortex jumps in and said, leave this to me. I'll help you steer that ball safely so nobody laughs at you in your case. So it is impossible for your prefrontal cortex to manage that many muscles, that split-second timing, to hit a small 1.5-inch ball 200 yards in any one direction. But it tries to get involved, and basically it just messes up the automatic thing you've done many times. You just swung at the ball and hit it. Because it tries to take control to protect you from embarrassment, but it can't do it. It's too limited.
Yeah, it's kind of like when people are you're doing something that you've always done, and you're always fine at it. But when people are watching you, that's kind of like the prefrontal cortex, like, oh, don't mess up right now, and then you mess up, even though it's something that you've done many times.
Exactly. There's another phrase: if you had to think consciously about walking down the stairs, you'd never do it. You'd fall over every time. You'd fall down the stairs but because you can do it automatically, you do. Another one. This is an easy one most people can relate to, adults driving a car.
I was just going to say, like, trying to do a parallel park or something, and you got a backseat driver.
You just try and get the thing to move along. You've got levers, buttons, dials, knobs, and you're maneuvering this machine with spatial awareness. Your conscious brain just can't do it. And so you have this struggle learning to drive, but then when you get competent, you hand it over to the big brain, the main brain at the back, then you'll find you can not only drive, you can drive whilst on the mobile phone, whilst drinking coffee. Some people put in on makeup. All easy. There we go. And illegal.
Yeah. Like if someone, like if you ever had a backseat driver and you're trying to parallel park the car, and like you've done it many times, but when someone's back there, they always feel like they need to help you. And then like you just don't do it. And then you get frustrated, even though you've done it many times before alone.
Exactly. And it's all because we have this, not all, but for the sake of this discussion now, this modern brain that we think makes us so much more of an advanced species than everything else is just messing so much stuff up. And a lot of the 21st century has been designed by people using this front brain, which is a bit stupid in itself, for people using the front brain, when actually we should be designing with the back brain for people to use the back brain. Why would you let petulant teenagers design the world?
So how can we use this to develop willpower so that we can consistently overcome that teenage brain and we can do and take the right action when necessary?
That's probably a very big subject for one question, but we'll have a go.
Okay. I think all these questions are big, right?
They're to do with the brain. They're massive, and the great thing is, because every day we're suddenly learning so much more, the opportunity is fantastic, because you just pick up a newspaper every day and there's a bit of research you can apply to your life. But anyway, back to habits. Habits are, as you probably know, ingrained within our neural pathways. The more you do something, the more it gets wired in, be it a good habit or a bad habit. And, you can't change habits overnight. You have to rewire them. So typically, habits aren't to do with the petulant teenager brain. They may have been started by the petulant teenager. So let's say somebody started to smoke and they did that because they wanted to look big next to their mates. That would have been started with a conscious decision to go and feel sick after lighting a cigarette and spend dollars and hate it. But then the more you do it and the nicotine does its bit, it sort of becomes automatic, and you create these single scripts and chunking so that it is an automatic habit. It is governed without any conscious awareness. You see a cigarette store, you go in and buy 20. You sit in a bar at night, you light a cigarette. All these things happen without conscious awareness. So the way around that is to keep breaking that script. There's lots and lots of ways to do it, by hurting yourself, recognizing the scripts. The one I use as a simple one is, if you're one of these people that has a cigarette mid-morning with a coffee at work, goes outside and has a cigarette, then change the coffee, because it breaks the habit that's linked to the cigarette. Understand the start to the end of the habit and break a bit of it. And then amongst that, you make the habit more conscious, so the petulant teenager can have another think about it.
So breaking the habit is...
Break the habit. A habit is a series of events, like a chain of events. Another good habit is shaking hands. So if I held out my hand to you now, and you would automatically hold your hand back, we would shake hands. You don't have to work it out or get a book out to see how to do it. You instinctively know it's a habit. This is what shaking hands is. It's automatic, totally. That means that if I do something between me holding out my hand and you clasping my hand and us shaking hands, I can actually change your behavior without you really knowing. And we did this with an experiment with some psychologists.
Yeah.
So what we actually did was, as somebody reached out their hand to shake our hand, we grabbed that hand with our other hand and said a number. Then we put the hands together, shook hands as normal, and went on. We then asked the people we'd shake hands with to think of the first number that came into their heads. The majority said the number we'd said, but none of them realized we'd stopped the shaking hands, because it was part of a script they were running in their head. So it was just automatic. That probably sounds weird, but it's true.
Yeah, I'm seeing how all this comes together now. I want to pay more attention now to creating a mindset for success. In part 4 of your book, you have a section called Changing the Script, which I find very powerful. Can you touch on that?
This is these scripts. You run your life on so many scripts, and if you change the scripts, you can change your life. So, I'm trying to think of good examples. If you get up every morning, you go downstairs, have your breakfast, that's putting some food in. That's part of your script. So if you have your sugar-filled cereals every morning, that's doing something to affect how you react to the day. If then you go to work, you sit in the office, you start by moaning about your colleagues, then you moan about your boss, then people moan back at you. All this is not doing any good for you doing any better. So you think, right, I'm going to change this. I'm going to start my day with a piece of fish for breakfast. That's better for the brain, for example. And then I'm going to go to the office, and the first thing I'm going to do is say, what a great day, as I get in the car. That changes the script. And all you do then is you go through your day, your week, your year, whatever, just picking up how many things you do that are actually self-defeating. Every time you moan for no reason, it's self-defeating. Every time you get angry for no reason, it's just recognize it and change it. So many of the self-help people will tell you there aren't problems, there are opportunities. It's easier said than done. But if you recognize when you're being frustrated and you can change something, change it. Why go through the every day of your life moaning about your boss? Do something about it. And that's changing the script. But taking a step back from that, if I can, Andrew, most people don't even recognize the script they're running. So, it'll get to Friday night, and that was a shit week, excuse my language, so that was a bad week. And why? Well, I don't know, it just was. Let's look at it. Let's break it down. What was bad about it? Oh, okay, let's have a go then. And, we're just conditioned by ourselves and the 21st century to keep our heads down and keep plowing on regardless, when we have fabulous opportunities to make it better. I sound like some sort of optimist that I'm not, but we're realizing that our brain is far more powerful than computers, than governments, than so many things. We've got it. We don't have to go out and spend lots of money learning stuff. We don't have to go out and buy expensive brands to make ourselves feel more confident. It's between our own ears. And the script, just understand the script you've created as you've grown up. Because a lot of the scripts we're given as children, so I'm sure it's another one that's quite common, is we're educated in a very bad way. And it's all about tests, and it's all about beating your peers. And when actually we should be educating people a different way to say, look, you've got this fabulous thing. Use it. Use it in a better way. Don't listen to the news every night and listen to these infuriating newscasters trying to win some sort of award for how depressed they can be, because that just drags you down. And why be dragged down? So some terrible things happening around the world. Yep, there is. But don't tell me every half an hour how terrible they are. Look around me. Actually, I'm doing all right here. I'm sat here with my dog on my lap, for example. That's a good time. I've got a cold beer next to me. It's a good time. All the things, stop. We're just obsessed with focusing on the negative at the moment as a planet.
Yeah. And even scripts around being someone's confidence. Maybe they've told themselves that they're shy, or that they're an introvert, or that they aren't good socially. That could be a script that someone's running.
Yeah.
And that's like whenever there's people and music, maybe they go instantly, that script kicks in and says, "Oh, I don't really do this type of thing. I better go." Or even money, where it's like, money's evil, or money is not something that I'm destined to have in life, or relationships. I think there's all these scripts that we have. And go ahead.
Come back to money, if I may.
Yeah, money. Let's do it.
Let's park that. But the other scripts, we had that bit of fun earlier when you talked about you not asking that girl out on a date.
Yeah, okay.
And if you play that through to its nth degree, if you were in the nightclub and when they play the slow songs,
yeah,
and every time you have that fear of rejection, fear of failure, and all the things that go with it, you can start to hear those songs in the car driving to work and get the same fear completely irrationally.
Yeah.
Because it triggers stuff in your brain. But money's great. Nobody wants money. Nobody wants money. And this is one of those wonderful modern day anomalies. So what we all want is what the money will get us. So if I put a picture of a holiday in Acapulco with all the high diving off that rock and the beautiful blue sea and the ocean, everything else, or a picture of a pile of money, emotionally, the holiday is much more appealing, unless you don't like Acapulco, because the money is a means to an end. So when people write down, "I want $1 million," no, you don't. You want something like caring for your family, or a house so you can show off with your mates. The emotional driver is not the money. You have to get to the emotional driver behind the money, and then the money comes.
I like that. In
my own world, I did some work, and going back a while now, I was trying to work out what my emotional drivers were. And in the early days of starting my company, so I'm going back 20 years, I had two. One was I feared responsibility, and the other one, I feared debt.
Yeah.
I feared debt. These are absolutely true stories. So I worked this out. Right, what do we do with this? And so I was a one-man band, and I went out and employed two people. Suddenly I had responsibility. Frightened me to death. The other thing I did, I went to the bank and got the biggest mortgage I could get and bought a house that I had to work hard to pay for. The net was my brain went to work on its own. Just didn't need my help. It was doing this. It worked out that I had to work hard to give these employees work, to give them wages. And I had to work very hard to pay off this mortgage. So after 3 years, it's absolutely true, I've got 8 people working for me, so not huge, but it was good. And I paid off my mortgage because my brain had dealt with it. And once you give your brain the emotional reasons, you play to the emotional brain, it sorts it for you. And the petulant teenager doesn't even know this has happened.
Yeah. I think just identifying that, we're running a script. And there's scripts probably, for healthy ways, right? Like we could have healthy scripts and unhealthy scripts.
Absolutely. And governments nowadays, I'm not being political anyway, they use a thing called nudge to keep us on scripts. And they want us, so they will start doing whole campaigns about consuming less sugar. That's one at the moment. and all these different things they're doing. And they know people, they influence our scripts. And so what they're doing, 10 years ago, people ate a lot more bad foods than they do now because the governments are influencing our scripts. And people will decide to eat more healthily. But they need to recognize the script before they can change it. It's no good just saying, I'm not going to eat sugar. You need to know why.
Wow. Okay, so I think understanding these scripts can help us understand why we do some of the things we do. How can you break a script? How can, like, if you're doing something like this isn't serving me, how can I break that?
This is such a simple. The easiest way. This is going to sound so simple. Sorry, I'm hesitating saying it. The easiest way to break a script is to recognize it's a script. So you're getting up every morning going to work. Let's use that one. And something bad happens every day that you don't like, be it lunchtime, tea, whatever. And just recognize, why is that bad? Is it bad? Or is it you just decided it's bad and then what the brain does, it's called confirmation bias, is once you decide that the food at work is always horrible, that you've made that decision, then your brain has a way of confirming that so you don't, again, feel silly in front of other people because you keep saying the food's rubbish. It's confirmation bias. So I do say all we have to do really is break down what we do that we don't like and understand what the script is. And it's like a film or a book. It could be the whole book is one script. It's very unlikely. The whole book is probably lots and lots of scripts, of which many are very good. But there's a few in there that aren't that good, and they seem to surface all the time. And it's just about, once you've recognized it, it's very easy to change it. I'm trying to think of a really simple example. Once you recognize that every time you go to the fast food joint, you can't resist the going large on your meal. And you think, why do I do that? Why don't? Once you recognize that, it's much easier to do something else instead, because you recognize that you do it. Does that make sense to you, Andrew?
Yeah, it does make sense. And I think we can break these scripts by first identifying that it is a script, that we are running a script, and then making some changes once we identify it. And because choosing a different option.
Yeah, because this is true. Our brains have been created for the 3 Fs, we spoke of it earlier, and our brains can cope with, they know that the red berries are ripe and the green berries are sour. They know there's more likely to be more meat on a big animal if they kill it than the small one. This is the way, that's what the brain's wired for. The brain isn't wired for take the supermarket, 50,000 products to choose from. We can't do that. So what our brain has to do is take shortcuts. And our brain is constantly looking for shortcuts. And because it takes the path of least resistance, most of those shortcuts are actually probably not the best for us. And all we have to do is say, why am I taking that shortcut? Why am I doing that? Why do I always fall for the same special offers? Why do I always see those ads in the newspapers and it's your brain taking a shortcut. Sorry, I'm going to jump across myself here. That is where the prefrontal cortex has a real purpose. If you've got this overwhelming urge to do something, if you can just give the prefrontal cortex time to think twice, or at least think once, you'll probably come to a better decision, because you're then weighing up the emotional and the rational need before diving in with a credit card.
I like that. All right. This has been a good episode here, learning about the brain. And I think you have a really interesting background coming from as a commercial psychologist, and bringing that into the world of personal development. I think it's really adding insight into why we do what we do and how we can change some of those bad scripts that have been running our lives in possibly a negative direction. Briefly now, I want to go into the knowledge round, Philip. I'm just going to ask you some rapid fire questions here. So are you ready for the knowledge round?
Can I use pass if I don't know?
Yes.
Fire away.
Guys, after 200 plus interviews, traveling the world, attending dozens of personal growth events, I finally cracked the code on how to unleash the man within. This Wednesday, I'll be sharing my biggest insights on creating the life you want, and I'm doing an open QA with all of you. I'm doing this live event because it gives me a place to connect with the Knowledge for Men community directly versus listening to me now. You get to interact with me. Register for the next event by going to kfmlive.com. Last week's event was a massive success, so don't miss out. There's limited space available. Again, register for the next event by going to kfmlive.com. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime. All right, first question here. Phillip, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling kind of lost or unsure of their purpose?
Get a pen and paper and write down what found means. So break it down. What is lost? Are you alone? Are you really alone? Or you just think you're alone? Are you seeking a fortune? What's a fortune? Is it $1 million? Well, that's no good. Or is it a house? Break it down. What are you lost? Make sense of it.
I like that. One activity I did with a client was he wanted to be a millionaire. And there's nothing wrong with making money, but I just said, okay, well, what would you do with that money if you were to make $80,000? Because it's $84,000 a month. So if you just made $84,000 this month, what would you do? And he's like, oh, I'd get a new car. I was like, okay, that's $400 a month. All right. He's like, I'd get a new condo. I was like, okay, $3,000 maybe a month on your rent. Okay, we've still got like $81,000 left here. And he's like, I'd get a new watch. Okay, that's $1,000 maybe, and then that's a watch for a long time. He's like, I get some new clothes. Okay, maybe like $5,000 if you're spending a lot of money. That's like a whole new wardrobe. I'd go out at night. Okay, so you go out twice a night. You'll probably spend $300. That's $600. And we still got about $80,000 here. What are you gonna do? And it was just crazy to see because he was only able to spend about $10,000, and that's going all out in a month. And like, what would you really do with that money? And then I would save the rest, but save it for what? You've already bought everything you needed. And then I'm not against money, but sometimes I think it helps. Like, why do I think we've been kind of knocked in our heads with so many books and different influencers telling us to make $1 million. But I think that, look at what you really want and then start from there.
Absolutely. I mean, strictly speaking, from an evolutionary point of view, we haven't yet wired our brains to count. We've only had, I think, these numbers are going to be wrong, but bear with me. We've had words for something like 10,000 years and numbers for something like 5,000. And it takes the brain 30,000 years to evolve meaningful change. So we're talking about money. We can't actually count.
We can't actually count.
You can, but it's a conscious process. It's not as inbuilt and automatic as eating or breathing, or it's not a natural, or love. Love creates chemical change that's much stronger than money's chemical change. But we are obsessed with money. And you're absolutely right. We'll just stick a figure because we've heard it, $1 million. Got to get $1 million. Yeah, why? Well, because I don't know. And that's the petulant teenager. Somebody's told this teenager in the playground that $1 million is good. Makes you big. You can get more partners. So it goes after $1 million without really understanding what it is.
Yeah. Big epiphany there. And I'm glad we dove into that. Next question here, Phillip. What was holding you back from becoming the man you are now today?
Honestly, this is going to sound absolutely horrible. I think I'm not far off where I want to be. I've got a wife and a child. I've got a lovely life. I run my own company. If look at my bucket list, it ain't that bad. Have I still got dreams? Yeah, I have, and I'll go and get them. I think the thing I enjoy more than anything is I'll get up tomorrow morning and somewhere tomorrow I shall learn something else about mine or somebody else's brain. So that keeps you getting up every morning because, saying I want to get money, or I want to get a partner, I want to get. I've done pretty well. I'm quite happy. There you go.
What do you?
Well done, brain.
Well done. I killed the teenager. So that's an interesting place, right? When you've accomplished so much, where do you look for fulfillment? Because so much of we spend a lot of time, going after the things that you're talking about: wife, children, great job, and had a good career, having a good career. Like, what do you turn to after that?
Okay, I'm a firm believer, and this is not evidence, this is me saying it, that once you stop going after something, that's you done. That's the end of the road, you die. Yeah, so you need to keep going after new things. Now, luckily, I have an absolute passion, and passion's emotion, to learn more about this thing so many of us don't know much about, me included, which is the brain. So I know that unless I discover immortality, I'm never going to learn all about it. So as I say, it is so rewarding. I mean, even now, I was with a client today and I was suggesting making small changes to a shop display, funnily enough, and it'll have profound changes to how people behave in front of that display. And that, it makes me, I just love it. I can't describe it any other way. It's a proper emotional, yes, come on, let's have it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Tony Robbins has a saying where he says, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that, because we are, from the moment we appear on this planet and we start to learn stuff, they also say that, they used to say that you couldn't learn as you got older. You can. And they now know that the brain keeps learning all its life. So yeah, just keep, the thing, Andrew, I keep saying this, we have such an opportunity. Only in the last 15 years have we started to understand what our brains can do. And frankly, the world is way behind in terms of commerce and education and the way cultures are set up. Anybody who knows how the brain works is way ahead of the curve, because most people are still following what schools tell them, what governments tell them, what big companies tell them. And if you know how your brain works, you are well ahead of the curve, and there's so much opportunity.
It almost sounds like you can be more free when you understand this.
Yeah, and I suppose there's some people that, in fact, there are people, I've met them, that it's like the people that spend 30 years working for a big corporation, then decide to go on their own. And it's like taking the stabilizers off a child's bicycle. Suddenly they don't know what to do. They need a support network. And so, yeah, to some people, being free is not good, because they've brought themselves up and they've been brought up and trained and conditioned to not be free, because that's threatening to somebody else. Yeah, but it should be great. It should be absolutely fantastic that we can do whatever we want.
Yeah, you're right. Sometimes freedom can feel like uncertainty, and people don't want to be uncertain. They'd rather be certain, and sometimes that might come at the cost of their freedom.
That's the teenager again. Yeah, the teenager wants to be certain of failure than uncertain about success. There you go. Well done, teenager.
All right.
It can manage that. It can manage your state. It can manage your expectations. You ain't going to be no good. I can manage that.
Yeah. What would you say are 2 or 3 of your most influential books that have helped you on your journey around this topic?
Okay, they're going to be, I love Emotions and Life by Robert Plutchik. Absolutely fabulous book. Okay. Then there's Efficiency in Learning. This is about how we should be teaching children, but we don't. Then what's another one? There's so many good ones. Imagine by Jonah Lehrer. Can I have a fourth?
You go for a fourth.
Anybody who sells anything, and everybody's always selling something, it's Influence by Cialdini, The 6 Pillars of Influence.
Yeah.
Because that, again, is based on proper psychology. And so the stuff works.
Yeah, that book has been mentioned so many times from so many different walks of life on this show. So yeah, definitely a classic book.
Can I say a book that I'm fed up with?
What's that?
This damn book that talks about System 1 and System 2. The System 1 learning, System 2 learning. It's the petulant teenager versus the subconscious. Oh, who wrote it? I can't remember the name of it now. I'm so sorry. It'll come to me when we finish this. So talk to anybody about psychology. They say, oh, do you know System 1, System 2? Kahneman. Kahneman wrote it. Daniel Kahneman.
What's wrong with that? I've heard of that book.
Yeah, everybody's heard of it. But everybody now is a psychology expert because they can say System 1 and System 2. They think the entire universe revolves around System 1 and System 2, when that is 2 aspects of the most powerful supercomputer ever invented, which is our brain. It's a tiny fraction of it. But it's people's petulant teenager brains hiding from facing up to the fact that we're learning stuff about the brains. They say, oh, yes, I know System 1, System 2. That makes me an expert. They haven't got to talk about it anymore. No, they don't. There's so much more to it than System 1 and System 2.
Yeah. I think I'll have to look more into that book to understand that. But like the books that you mentioned, I'll be sure to check out. This one's more of a scenario, Philip. Imagine you had a minute with your 25-year-old former self. If you can envision what Philip is doing at 25 years old, what would you tell him to do, and what would you tell him not to do?
Okay, in terms of what I'd tell him to do, I would tell him to keep reading, keep learning, don't stop learning. Because education, the way we're brought up, we're almost sort of told to start learning at 5 years old, stop at 20 years old, or maybe 22. Don't. The brain doesn't mature to 22, 23. So keep learning. And the other thing which I have lived my life by, and I've probably made some great mistakes because of it, is don't let people frighten you. And by that I mean, we've all done silly things I have in the young life. If you get a red letter from somebody saying you owe money, it's just red ink. It doesn't mean you're going to lose a limb. But it's written in a way to frighten you. Don't let people frighten you because you make irrational decisions. The teenager jumps in again. So it is, again, just keep learning. The more you learn, the more your brain can do. The more you know your brain can do, the more you can, this is going to sound wrong, get above all the things that the world throws at us so easily.
Would you say this is your philosophy on success as well, your philosophy on life in a way?
My philosophy in life is very short. There we go.
All right, sure. What is that?
And I trust my brain. So even if somebody says, "You fool, why'd you do that?" My brain knows what it's doing. It knows what it's doing. Sometimes I won't say that, but I wholeheartedly believe it. My brain's, we're a team, me and it, and we get on all right. And I know it's trying to get me sorted in things I need to do. I know it puts me in some places. It's done some strange things. And when you analyze it later, you think, that was actually very clever. May I give you a quick example if we got time?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I had, when I took up golf, how long ago? 10 years ago, I don't know. I had a thing that was quite common in golf, first tee nerves. Standing on the first tee, thinking people are going to laugh at you, all the stuff you and you're chatting with your friends again. This fear of failure, fear of duffing the ball into the lake 10 yards in front of you, all this sort of stuff. And I did a bit of work on my own brain. So, come on, brain, this is silly. Let's deal with this, brain. So I did. And I just spent a week thinking about it and writing a few things down. And then when I stood on the tee the following week, this was how the brain got rid of my fear. It did something with my vision on that first tee, whereby instead of it looking like this narrow tree-lined fairway with a lake, it looked the width of 10 football fields. It literally changed my perspective. And that's the brain doing what it does. It uses the tools it's got. So it didn't change my fear. It changed what the brain made of what my eyes showed it. So what I thought was a narrow fairway became a wide fairway. I couldn't miss it, and I didn't. So there you go. Trust my brain. Trust it. It'll do it.
I like that. Trust your brain. I like that. And that's been a powerful knowledge round here, Phillip. Thank you for that. Very refreshing. And now, what's exciting you today? What's really driving you when you get up in the morning?
What's driving me at the moment? As I keep saying, I've now started lecturing to universities as well.
Oh, great.
So what's driving me now is I did a workshop today with a professional client. I'm doing another one with a different client tomorrow, and I'm lecturing next week. So this really excites me, to give back what I know about the brain. And I'm not doing it in an educational, clinical psychology way. It's much more of we have these things between our ears, so this is what you can do with it. And it is fascinating to see when you talk to master students and you give them a lecture, and I don't come at it, this is that part of the brain, this is the clinical, that part of the brain, this is the hippocampus, this is what I do, and this is how people pay me to do this. This is what big companies want. It's like a light goes on in their head. All of a sudden, education to them there's meaning to it. I'm not just getting through this college life. There's meaning. Yes, I see now. And that gets me up. I love doing presentations and talks like that.
It's great to be able to connect. I mean, I've heard you time and time throughout this episode talk about how passionate and excited you are about learning more about the brain, and learning has been kind of like a core theme of this whole episode for you, and learning more about the brain in particular. And then being able to be in a position, like you wrote a book, like you've had a career in as a commercial psychologist. You're now speaking with university students. Sounds like you're booked. You're like, gotta workshop today, tomorrow, the next day. And how awesome is it to be able to do something that you're really passionate about, and also make an impact in, income, doing something that really lights you up?
It is two things I'll say there, Andrew. It is brilliant. That's the only word for it. And you can tell how passionate I am by the speed I talk. I'm sorry about that, people, but it's...
No, I like the energy. I like it.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. And where I'm at now is, I have been paid by very big companies to understand how people's brains work and how their behavior and things. And I'm at the point now where it's great, because I'm starting to give it back. So this book is not about how to sell more computers, how to sell more beer or candy. This is about how the people sell you more candy. And so it's almost like I feel I've done my 30 years of learning. I've been paid by all these people to learn stuff. Now I can turn it around and say, here you are, people. You learn it. Here it is. It's in a book. It's because, unfortunately, Andrew, and I did say this once and got into a bit of trouble. The education system around the world should be ashamed because they make psychology so dull. They do it in such a way that it's just almost an extension of biology. It's another science.
Right.
When actually it is so way, way more exciting if positioned in a way that this is why you do silly things. This is why you do good things. And it's just, once you connect with people of all ages, they go, yeah, I get it. Why didn't they tell me that at school? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I love the passion, love the energy. And for all the listeners here, you can follow up with the book, Master Your Brain, Training Your Mind for Success in Life by Phillip Adcock. Just go to Amazon, type in Master Your Brain. It pops right up. And looking here, available in hardcover format. And Phillip, how else can the audience follow up with you?
I will leave you. When we finish this, I'll give you my email because I love talking to people about the brain. Anybody who wants to share stuff about the brain, I'll talk, as you can tell. And I'll listen, because what's happening at the moment is you've got so many people learning little tiny bits about this huge supercomputer, be it Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Oxford, Cambridge, all these, but they don't speak to each other. And there's a big gap in people saying, oh, I know about motivation. Oh, I know about it. And when you talk together, it accelerates the learning. So anything people have got about the brain they want to talk about or things they've learned, it's just my absolute passion, Andrew.
I can tell. It's really, you can tell from the energy of your voice. I know. So, Phillip, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your stories and lessons here with my community and challenging me and giving me some exercises. It's been really good.
Anytime. And this isn't a sales pitch. There are some exercises in the book. Just look at them, people, because they're a shortcut to understanding how your brain works.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and millions of downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement and we're just getting started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a helpful review in iTunes because it really helps the podcast grow so we can impact even more men in the world who need this. Guys, this is all about living with purpose, where every day you only do things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. And always remember, love the life you have while creating the life of your dreams. Go to kfmfree.com to get a surprise bonus I've made for my listeners. Again, that's kfmfree.com for something that's changed my life, and I'm offering it to you for free. Also, check out my Amazon best-selling books that I've written for you to help you crush life at kfmauthor.com. Again, that's kfmauthor.com to see all the books I've created to help you break through in life. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, founder of knowledgeformen.com, and I'll see you in the next episode.